Firstly, thank you for joining. It's great to get Luke to talk about Silversea, and particularly because if I have any frustration in the travel industry, one of them is that people think cruises are cruises are cruises, and they're all the same. And nothing could be further from the truth, and particularly when we're talking about Silversea. I'll talk about my personal experiences a bit later on Silversea. I have been on board, I'm delighted to say. But cruises are certainly not all the same. And I'm hoping after half an hour, 40 minutes of Luke, you'll see what a different Silversea is and understand exactly, because let's be frank here, Silversea are not the cheapest cruises. If you want the cheapest cruise, it's not Silversea. So I think all of us understand that paying a bit more is fine, providing you think you've got that value and ideally more in terms of what you've actually had in the holiday. And so Luke hopefully will inspire us and give us hundreds of reasons why that choice for Silversea is right. So Luke, I'll pass over to you, mate.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Miles. And thank you everybody for taking the time to come and listen to me today. Hopefully you find it beneficial, and I do inspire you, and I'll at least try to help you escape for the next half hour, 45 minutes, and we can all imagine we're somewhere nicer in the world than being stuck in our own homes. I'm just going to share my screen with you quickly. There we go. So hopefully you can all see that okay. So just to kick things off, the presentation I've put together really is just to highlight what we do at Silversea, what we do differently, and what sets us apart from the other cruise lines out there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our most recent launch. We have just recently launched our summer 2022 and winter 22-23 itineraries. It was a huge launch with lots to talk about, so I have had to condense this presentation quite a lot, but I'm going to still try and get as much across as possible. And as I said, it's just going to be a bit of inspiration, a whistle-stop tour around the world to hopefully whet your appetite for when we are allowed to travel again, and hopefully get you on board Silversea. So to kick things off, I'm going to start with a quick 1-minute video. Hopefully this works, just to whet your appetite.
Let us take you to 900 special places, or maybe even more. There's nothing like them in the world, and trust us, we've seen the world. Almost every corner of it, for you. Let us take you there in style. Wherever you go, you'll find us in your home on board. We'll be there for your needs, even before they arise. A unique home, small enough to remain personal, and to get closer to the authentic beauty of the world. And we'll make you taste the excellence, the great diversity and freshness of our selections through the savvy of our chefs. And while you explore all the privileges we have included, you'll find that the real luxury is in the moments, the places, the memories you'll keep. And that is what we're all about.
So you would have seen some key points flashing up about us, which is what I will touch on in a little bit more detail as we go through. But just to give you some background on us at Silversea and where we've come from, where we are today. We are 26, nearly 27 years old. So we launched back in 1994, and we were the vision, or the birth child really, of the Lefebvre family of Rome. For the first 24 years of sailing, we were completely family run, independently owned. Until about 2-3 years ago, when Royal Caribbean actually brought 51% of the business. And since then, they have now taken over full ownership of the business, which is great for us. It means that we've got the financing, the financial backing of a huge corporation. It means that we can grow and we can really build and enhance on what we've already done for our customers. We do operate 2 ways to see the world, or 2 different experiences, which I'll touch on in a moment with you. We visit all 7 continents on soon to be 10 ships, and at last count, well over 900 destinations. So we touch more ports of call than any other operator out there. The two experiences, or the two brands we have at Silversea, are Silversea, which when you're talking to the team at Miles Morgan or myself, we always refer to this as our classic cruises. So this is the more traditional way to cruise and see the world, to places like the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, South America, Australia. And that's made up of 6 intimate cruise ships, and they range from just 388 guests up to a maximum of 608 guests. And then for the more adventurous of you out there, we do have our expedition brand as well. We've been sailing expeditions now for about 12 years, so we've been doing it for quite some time. And we have 4 specialised expedition vessels, ranging from just 100 to 274 guests. And they're purpose-built vessels, or purposely designed for the regions and parts of the world we take them to. If you do have any questions on the differences, by all means ask away, and we can answer the questions at the end. But hopefully this presentation will give you a bit of an idea of that as we go through. Talking of our ships, 2020 wasn't all doom and gloom for us at Silversea. It was the year of new ships. We actually took delivery and managed to launch 2 new ships during a global pandemic. So starting with Silver Origin, our first purpose-built ship for the Galapagos Islands, and she has now replaced Silver Galapagos, the ship we had out there originally. She's a pretty spectacular, she's a phenomenal ship, she's insane. Looks very much like the type of yacht one of the villains from a James Bond movie would be sailing around on. All balcony, all suite accommodation, the highest guest to space ratio is really within the Galapagos Islands, guest to crew ratio 1:1, everything you'd expect to find on a typical Silversea ship, but with that adventure and excitement of sailing around the Galapagos Islands. And then we also launched Silver Moon, one of our brand new classic ships. She's the second of our Muse class of ship. And she's currently sitting in the Mediterranean waiting for us to embark our first guests. Carries 596 guests. And again, I'll talk to you about the ships as we go through this presentation shortly. And after every moon comes a new dawn. And this year we'll see the launch of another new ship, the Silver Dawn, our third Muse class ship. So again, carrying 596 guests. And a few weeks ago, we actually had a float out at Fincantieri shipyard in Ancona in Italy. So she is now on the water. She's floating and doing everything a ship should be doing. And we're now starting work on the interior to get her ready for launch this November. And the best thing about Silversea is a little bit of exclusive news for you. We're not stopping there. We've got another 2 ships coming over the next couple of years, our Evolution class ships. And now I truly don't know anything about them. But what I have been told is that they will be game-changing ships, and they will really set us apart even further from the crowds out there. So we continue to grow and continue to invest at Silversea. This is our fleet currently as it stands. So along the top, you'll see our classic ships. So Silver Spirit is the first ship, as she is our biggest, carrying 608 guests. You've then got Muse and Moon, both carrying 596 guests. Oh, and Dawn, sorry, carrying 596 guests as well. And then our 2 Millennium class ships, Silver Whisper and Shadow, both carrying 388 guests. Along the bottom are our expedition vessels. So Silver Wind and Cloud, the 2 ships that started Silversea Cruises, have now been converted and have got ice class hulls, so we can take our guests to the polar regions on these ships now. Wind will carry 274 guests, Cloud 240, and Explorer 244. And as I touched on, Silver Origin carrying just 100 guests in the Galapagos Islands as well. But the heart and essence of Silversea is small ship cruising. And these 2 images will give you a really good comparison to size of us versus some of the big boys out there. The image on the left, Silver Shadow, we've only got 3, soon to be 4 ships larger than Silver Shadow. Everything else is smaller and one of the same size. And I took this picture myself a few years ago in Cozumel, Mexico, and I really do think it just goes to show how small we are compared to these mega ships. And then if you look very closely behind the famous Queen there as well, you'll see our little baby Silver Cloud tucked in as well. So although we are small, Believe you me, we do pack a punch, and you do not have to compromise on anything when traveling with Silversea. We are an all-suite accommodation, so we don't offer any inside cabins or staterooms. This is our lead-in. This is our lowest category suite when it comes to our classic cruise ships at Silversea. So our Vista suite. I didn't want to show you the high category suites and disillusion you. I wanted to show you some of the basic suites so you can get a real grasp for what we're about. The image doesn't do the suite any justice. As you can see, you've got that lounge area with the curtain to separate if you wanted to. You've got the bedroom. What you can't see is you've got a full walk-in wardrobe, which is huge. When I first started at Silversea, I actually took a couple of our travel agent accounts on board Silver Cloud. We had two gentlemen sharing. One of them was a snorer. The other one actually slept in the wardrobe every night to get away from the noise, just to give you some idea as to the space we offer to our guests. And then what you can't see is a fully kitted out Italian marble bathroom. I know you can see one of the silver suites there as well. This is a little bit bigger than what you get in the Vistas, but in the Vista suites, you still get the full-size bathtub, separate walk-in rainforest shower, his and her sinks. So it really is all about that feeling of space and comfort. And let's face it, space is probably one of the most precious commodities we have at the moment. And that is exactly what we have. As I said, we have some of the highest guest to space ratios of any ships out there. Moving on to an expedition ship, just to show you an example of one of our suites there. This is a veranda suite on board Silver Explorer. So it's not our lead-in suite, but it's about 3 or 4 from the bottom. It's nowhere near our top category suite. And Silver Explorer is our oldest expedition ship. So I just want to show you how comfortable she is. Silver Explorer is a purpose-built ship, and she takes our guests up to the Arctic throughout our summer and then heads down to Antarctica throughout our winter period. Now, a lot of guests think when they go to the poles that they have to do it on an old Russian research vessel. And you'll see here, Silver Explorer and our other expedition ships are all extremely comfortable. And they're even more comfortable when you take the destination you're traveling to into consideration as well. On board ship, we pride ourselves on our service. We have a guest to crew ratio of pretty much 1-to-1 across every ship within our fleet. So almost as many crew wandering the decks as we have guests. But we're the only cruise line out there to offer butler service for every single guest on board. So regardless of what suite type you book into, all of you will have access to a butler, and they are really there just to spoil you rotten and to make sure that you're maximising your time on board and being looked after. Types of things they do for you, just to let you know, when you embark the ship, they'll be there to meet and greet. They'll show you to your suite. They'll show you how all the facilities in the suite work. They'll then run through a checklist, and we give all of our guests the choice of 9 different pillow types, soft or firm mattresses. There's a whole list of mattress toppers should they be required for you, and they can sort that out. They'll take your drinks order and stock your in-suite bar, but we'll touch on that shortly. They can make your dining reservations, shore excursion bookings, spa treatment bookings, you name it. As long as it's legal and within reason, they're there to really make it happen for our guests. And if I'm being completely honest, when I'm on board, I'm not one to really take advantage of the butler service. And if you're like me, I can guarantee by the end of the cruise, you will still fall in love with them. You will want to take them home because they just get on with things without you having to ask them to do it. So a couple of examples I always like to share. For gents, when we're off the ship during the day, and you come back and it may be a formal evening that night, you'll find that your shoes have been taken away, they've been polished, they're wrapped in tissue, ready for you just to wear out that evening. As you can all see from my camera, I wear glasses. So when I'm off the ship during the day and I've got my sunglasses on, I come back and my glasses are absolutely spotless. They're wrapped in a Silversea cloth, ready for me just to pop straight back on. It's the small things our guests don't expect, and we're always trying to think a few steps ahead of them as to why they fall in love with us and as to why they keep coming back to us at Silversea. And the service doesn't just stop with the butlers, it's for every one of our staff on board. We really do challenge our staff on board to try and know our guests' names and favourite drink by day 2 of the cruise. Apologies, that's the BBC News alert going off. So yeah, we want them to know your names. We want them to know you personally. So when you walk into one of the bars or lounges, they will greet you personally. They'll know what drink you like. So you can just take your seat and that drink will just arrive. And we encourage all of our staff really to think outside the box and to do whatever they can to ensure our guests are looked after. Food, I think food is a massive part of any holiday. It doesn't matter whether you're on board a cruise ship or a land-based holiday. I know for me in particular, when I go away, I absolutely love trying new dishes and meal times. I took my parents on Silversea a few years ago, and I have to say they were absolutely horrified by how excited I got at meal times and what I was eating lunch and I was already thinking about where I was going and what I was going to have for dinner. But the food is spectacular on board. We actually have a choice of up to 8 restaurants available to our guests, depending on what ship you go on. So we give our guests that luxury of choice. There's more restaurants per guest than any other ship in our category. So if you are traveling with us for a week, you're not going to have the opportunity to dine in every restaurant with you. And that's anything from our French restaurant, La Dame, to La Terrazza, our Italian restaurant, Kaiseki, our Japanese restaurant. The list really goes on. One of my firm favourites, and I think a firm favourite of all of our guests, is our Hot Rocks Grill. So this is up on the pool deck. It's where we bring out the hot volcanic lava stones, and you can choose your cut of meat or fish, and you actually become the chef and you cook on your hot stone, your own personal private barbecue for the evening. It's great fun, dead casual, and as cliche as it sounds, you are literally watching the world sail by whilst eating your dinner on the top deck of one of our ships. And another exciting change or enhancement we've made to our food on board. The delivery of Silver Moon saw a new concept come to life for us, and that is our salt program. So this is our sea and land taste. We're calling it the salt ecosystem. The salt venues will be made up of 3 different venues. The salt kitchen, which will be a restaurant where the menu will change every day and will reflect the region or part of the world you're in. The Salt Bar, where depending on where you're on the world, we'll serve local alcohol, juices, cocktails, again, to really let our guests travel deeper into that destination. And also the Salt Lab, where we'll have local food experts and chefs come on board to actually do live cooking demonstrations, let our guests get involved so they can touch, taste and smell the food, obviously COVID permitting, but we'll have all of that available for our guests as well. And we'll roll that out across up to other ships wherever we have the space and the capacity to do so. Well, moving on to the all-inclusive lifestyle. We are an all-inclusive cruise line. So I'm just going to talk to you about the new message we're going out with at the moment, which is now more all-inclusive than ever before. And this is really relating to our launch of our summer 22 and winter 22-23 program. I will talk about the standard all inclusions, but going forward from these dates, you can see we now have included shore excursions and included air as standard. We do at the moment for this year include our air, but it's on a promotional basis, whereas as of summer 22, this will be a standard inclusion. And if you're traveling to Northern Europe or the Mediterranean with us at Silversea, we'll automatically for our UK guests include business class air for you as well. Business class upgrades will be available to all of our destinations around the world at a supplement as well. So as well as the included shore excursions, it's 1 per port per day for all of our guests for the summer 22 program. So great opportunity for our guests to get off and experience these destinations with us. You'll see here really our standard inclusions as it is anyways. So included in the Silversea fare you will see will be your pre and post cruise hotels if they're required. So if you're traveling to a long haul destination, we'll always fly you out the day before and overnight you in a hotel to a similar standard as to what you'll expect to find on board our ships. Your transfers will be included, booking the package of us, all your luggage handling. When you're in port, if you don't want to do a shore excursion, we'll have the complimentary city centre shuttles. Now, we pride ourselves on being so small that we can get our guests into the heart of the destination we're taking them to. But on the odd occurrence where we can't, we'll always lay on free transport for them. As I touched on earlier, butler service for every guest on board. The gourmet, all your onboard gratuities, tips and service fees are included. So there's no hidden charges, nothing you have to worry about being stung for. I touched about the different restaurants on board. There are a couple with service charge, but the vast majority are all included for our guests. Your beverages in suite and throughout the ship. So on average, we have around 400 different house wines per voyage. We include all of your premium spirits, soft drinks, teas, coffees, cocktails. That's all taken care of. I mentioned earlier that the butler will take your drinks order and stock your in-suite bar. Well, let's just say, for instance, you really do like your booze and you're on board Silversea and you place an order for some Grey Goose vodka, some Tanqueray gin, a Bacardi rum and some champagne. We will bring you the litre bottles of everything you've ordered. We stock that in your suite, in your in-suite bar, and that is there for you to help yourself to. There's nothing better than being able to pour yourself a glass of wine or champagne whilst getting ready in the evening, or to go and sit on the balcony with your partner, and again, just watch the world sail by and help yourself to the drinks. And that is replenished daily. So not that many of our guests do, but if you did want to drink a litre of vodka every night, we're not going to judge you. We'll replace the bottle the next day, and we'll probably help you nurse the hangover too. But that, as I said, is all taken care of, and it's a very small thing, but it really does help make the overall experience a much better experience. And we have complimentary unlimited Wi-Fi for all guests on board our ships, which many of you know. I'm assuming you've all been on a cruise ship at some point to express an interest in Silversea. Many cruise lines do charge astronomical amounts to connect to the outside world. And let's face it, we can't live without Wi-Fi these days. Nothing works without Wi-Fi. And then very quickly moving on to our expedition program, you'll see you get everything I've just mentioned, but you'll also get all your domestic in-country flights should they be required. You're traveling with a highly qualified expedition team. So you have the experts traveling with you to provide all the onboard lectures and enrichment resource. And we do also have a partnership with the RGS, the Royal Geographical Society in London, and they provide much of the material we actually share with our guests as well. So when you're walking around one of our expedition ships, quite often you'll see artifacts from Shackleton and Scott's expeditions down to Antarctica. When you're on board Silver Origin, there's lots of artifacts related to Darwin. So we really do bring the destinations to life that way as well. If you're traveling to the cold water regions with us, we'll also include a complimentary parka for our guests. Everyone gets the backpack and reusable water bottles. And again, we have the complimentary use of wetsuits and snorkeling equipment on board our ship. So there really is nothing you have to worry about when traveling with Silversea. Everything is taken care of, and we just want you to come on board, relax, and let us do the work for you. Now, every cruise line is out there saying that they have the best food, the best service, the best hardware, which I've just done to you as well. Now, I truly believe that we do have the best of those things. But one thing that truly does set us apart at Silversea is our destination leadership. I mentioned it earlier, no other cruise line touches the amount of destinations we visit. And you'll see from this map, just where we do go, there is no corner of the globe we leave unturned. All the little red dots are where our expedition vessels visit, and the grey bluish dots are where our classic cruise ships visit as well. So we really do pride ourselves on our itineraries and where we take our guests to. So if you are looking for somewhere weird and wonderful, somewhere off the beaten track, I'm pretty confident in saying, as long as it's not a landlocked destination, we'll probably have a ship there at some point throughout the year for you. Now, I am going to talk to you about our launch, and as I said, this is where I'm going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour around the globe, and hopefully whet your appetite to get something booked for the coming years. But in December, we launched our largest ever collection of itineraries. So you'll see there's 315 new voyages we launched, touching 669 destinations in 114 countries, and I have to add, on all 7 continents again, and 61 ports of call to us are going to be our maiden ports of call. You will see quite a few of them coming up on the coming presentation, on the coming slides. I'm not going to try and pronounce them. I'll let you read them for yourselves, because some of them I couldn't even tell you where they are, let alone try and pronounce them. And the itineraries we've just launched are really, they start from March 2022 and go all the way up to May 2023. So to kick things off, I'm going to talk about quite possibly the most popular cruise destination for British guests, the Mediterranean. Personally, I don't think there's any better way any better destination to cruise, especially for first-time cruisers. Every port of call is completely different. The cultures are changing constantly, and the Mediterranean is truly a spectacular part of the world. So during our new launch, we launched 61 new Mediterranean departures. We have 14 maiden ports of call and 1 new itinerary we've never operated before. You'll see here, we have 4 of our ships out there. So Silver Cloud, Spirit, Moon, and Dawn. So 3 of our biggest as well. And the itineraries we've launched really do have more of an emphasis. So we've launched more Eastern Med and Holy Land departures than we have in the past. So Silver Spirit will be offering a couple of departures covering the Holy Land, Greek Isles, and the Black Sea. It's nice to see the return of the Black Sea again. a brand new Cape Verde itinerary, and you can have the choice to whether you want to do that on an expedition or on one of our classic ships, and I'll show you them in a moment. And you'll see there 14 maiden ports of call, which are all listed along the bottom. As I said, I'm not going to try and pronounce them, but we're doing multiple overnight stays in places like Istanbul, Tel Aviv, Cadiz, Venice, Barcelona, all the iconic cities you expect to visit in the Mediterranean. We pride ourselves again on what we call our longer days. So we'll stay in port until 10, 11 o'clock in the evening, or we'll overnight, meaning our guests can really get to experience these destinations by night. They get to linger longer and see what the different ports of call are really like. A couple of sample itineraries for you. You'll see that first one is a 12-night trip from Lisbon to Dakar. So head down from Lisbon to the Canary Islands before arriving into the Cape Verde Islands. I've been lucky enough to actually do a land-based trip to the Cape Verde Islands, and it's absolutely beautiful for those of you who haven't been there. So I couldn't think of a better itinerary, to be honest with you, if you're looking for something new and different. A typical itinerary of our Western Med, you'll see a 7-night trip here from Rome, calling into Livorno, which, as you probably know, is the gateway for Pisa and Florence, over to Monte Carlo, Marseille, Barcelona, and so some beautiful destinations there. One of my favourite cruises, and I've done this quite a few times on various cruise lines, is Italy and the Adriatic. And so this is a 9-night trip from Venice to Rome, really taking in all the hotspots of that Adriatic coastline. So Zadar, Hvar, beautiful Croatian island, Dubrovnik, incredible place. One place which isn't featured on this itinerary is Kotor in Montenegro, one of my favourite ports of call ever. If you haven't been there before, it is the most southerly fjord in the northern hemisphere, and you sail up this fjord for about an hour and a half before you're just met by this medieval city. It's just spectacular. It's absolutely stunning, beautiful part of the world. So you'll also visit that in the Adriatic. Corfu in the Greek islands, Sicily before finishing in mainland Italy as well. And then you'll see one of our Greek Isles and Holy Land voyages taken in Greece, Turkey, and Israel as well. So some beautiful itineraries there. We've got so much more, but I can't go through everything with you. Moving on to Northern Europe and the British Isles. We've launched 28 new departures, 17 maiden ports of call, and 2 new itineraries. I was actually lucky enough a couple of years ago to sail on one of our Northern Europe itineraries. I actually sailed from London, so hopefully you would have seen one of our iconic images. We start our London voyages from central London. We lift Tower Bridge and start from the centre of London. And so I was lucky enough to sail from London up to Reykjavik in Iceland, predominantly around the UK. So we did a lot of the UK, Ireland, Scotland, and I have to say it was my favourite cruise. It was just so unexpected. I think we take the UK for granted, and also Northern Europe, because it's on our doorstep. We don't really appreciate what's there, and it's a beautiful part of the world to get on board a ship and go and explore. So you'll see here we have Silver Wind, Cloud, Whisper and Moon in this part of the world. Silver Cloud will be operating 2 brand new expeditions around the British Isles and the Atlantic coastline, which I'll show you again shortly. More departures of our iconic itinerary, so more Norwegian fjords and Baltic voyages with lots of overnight stays in port. And also it'll be the first time Silver Moon will come to Northern Europe as well. So one of our brand new ships heading to UK waters, which is very, very exciting. And I will get as many of the Miles Morgan team on board to see the ship so they can talk to you all about it firsthand and let you know what the ship is like. And here's some sample itineraries. So the first 2 are expeditions. That's why they're in that red line. So we've got the Dublin down to Lisbon, really taking in a little bit of the UK, but more the Isles of Scilly before heading to France, Spain and Portugal. And then we've got the, I'm just trying to work out which direction that actually goes. I'm going to say the Reykjavik down to Dublin, the voyage before, which is a 12-night trip, taking in Iceland and again more of the Scottish Isles and Ireland as well. When I say expedition to these destinations, it's not a case of just pulling up on the ship and getting off and going for a wander and doing your own thing. As I said, you're traveling with experts, so you'll have lectures about the different destinations you're going to every evening. Everyone, all the excursions are included, so everybody will get off and go and explore, and you really do get to know these destinations in detail and in depth when traveling on an expedition with us. You'll see here one of our Norwegian fjords cruises on the next one. So the North Cape, a 14-night trip starting from London, finishing in Tromsø, taking in all really Norway has to offer. And then a beautiful itinerary just based on Iceland. So this is a 10-night trip, Reykjavik back to Reykjavik, sailing all around Iceland, so no other destinations really taken into account. Beautiful, beautiful itinerary. I was lucky enough, as I said, to sail up to Iceland. We did a few different ports of call in Iceland, and my mind was blown by Iceland. It's insane. The scenery, the waterfalls, everything about Iceland is beautiful. But the one downside to Iceland is when you're out there, it's actually very expensive. So to do this on a trip, on a ship with us, and to sail around and really take in lots of the highlights of Iceland, there's no better way to do it. You're going to see far more than you would on a land-based trip, and you get everything taken care of with you throughout your stay. Moving on to, I told you this was a whistle-stop tour of the globe, guys, so hopefully you're still with me. Moving on to the Caribbean and Central America, I think a destination I don't really need to sell to you. I think we'd all love to be on a ship sailing around the Caribbean right now. So we have launched 22 new departures, including 6 maiden ports of call and 3 new itineraries. Again, we'll have 4 ships out there, so Silver Wind, Whisper, Dawn and Moon. We've got new departures really focusing more on the iconic itineraries, so that the Eastern, Southern and Western Caribbean, along with the sort of Central America and Panama Canal sub-region. Brand new itinerary for us, taking in Bermuda. We haven't been out there for a while, which I'll show you in a second. And also 3 new expeditions of the Caribbean. Again, a destination a lot of people don't think you can do an expedition on. They think you just travel from one beautiful beach to a rainforest to another beautiful beach. But there's so much history and so much depth to the Caribbean islands, which we can really take you on that adventure on board our expedition ships as well. You'll see the itineraries here. So the first expedition is Barbados, Bridgetown up to Fort Lauderdale, an 8-night trip. We then have a Central America expedition starting in Punta Arenas and heading down to Guayaquil. Beautiful, I'd love to do that itinerary myself. Bermuda, so this is a New York to Bridgetown. This one sounds incredible to me. It's in November, so you're literally going to sail from a freezing cold New York. And every day I imagine it's going to get that little bit warmer, and you're going to get that little bit more sunshine as the days get longer, heading down towards the equator and the Caribbean as well. And then you'll see a typical Eastern 7-night Caribbean trip from us. This one is from San Juan in Puerto Rico, but we also do have a couple of Barbados round trips, which is much easier for our UK guests to get to. Next destination I wanted to touch on with you is Alaska and the Russian Far East. We've launched 30 departures and 1 maiden port of call. We've actually increased our capacity quite drastically in Alaska. Now, for Alaska, I can't stress that if there's one destination where I say going on a smaller ship is going to have the most impact, it's probably Alaska. As you know, every cruise line has a ship based out in Alaska throughout the summer season, but they just can't get as close and get you as up close and personal to these destinations as being on a small ship can. So we have Silver Wind operating 1 expedition. Silver Shadow has 13 voyages and Silver Muse has 16 voyages. I'll show you our classic itineraries in a moment, but Silver Shadow and Silver Muse will be working in reverse to one another. That will make sense when you see the map. And as I said, we've got a new Russian Far East itinerary for you as well. So this is our typical iconic Alaska. It's a 7-night trip from Seward, which is the gateway or port for Anchorage. We head on down through the Inside Passage, touching all the key iconic ports of Sagway, Juneau, Sitka, Ketchikan, and then finishing in Vancouver. But we operate this in reverse. So when Silver Shadow is departing from Seward, Silver Muse will be departing from Vancouver to operate the same itinerary but in reverse, and the ships will meet halfway through their itinerary as well. So there's plenty of options for our guests when it comes to our iconic Alaska voyages. And again, we can package this up with the Rocky Mountaineer. We've got flight pre and post land tours, so you can do the flight to Denali or Bear Country. There's lots on offer to our guests there. And then you'll see this very different itinerary to the Russian Far East. So this trip, it starts in Nome, Alaska, so pretty much the northern tip of Alaska. You then head over to the Russian Far East, and again, I'm not going to try and pronounce these ports of call, before coming down to the Aleutian Islands, which is really brown bear country, all of these destinations, and then heading down into that typical, again, Vancouver, Seward, inside passage sailing as well. But you'll see here the amount of ports of call and the tiny little destinations we take our little expedition ships to as well. So if you do want to go to Alaska and you've got the time and you want to see real wild Alaska, this is the itinerary to get yourselves booked onto. Asia, 24 new departures, no new maiden ports of call. Asia is a big seller for us at Silversea and a firm favourite of our guests. So we've got 4 ships out there: Whisper, Shadow, Muse and Spirit. We've got new turnaround ports for our Japan departures. We've actually got 11 new iconic Japan departures. Japan, as you know, is so popular at the moment. We kept selling out, so we've introduced more itineraries. We've actually got 4 cherry blossom voyages available for you as well. And we've introduced, as you can see, lots of destinations, but you can now join the ship in Tokyo, Osaka, Kobe, and we'll also have some itineraries taken in South Korea as well. More overnight stays in the iconic cities across Asia. So overnight stays in Hong Kong, Bangkok, Osaka, Seoul, Singapore, all the Vietnamese cities we normally overnight, like Ho Chi Minh City. So lots of overnight ports. So if you look at an itinerary, it might look like you're not actually going to many places, but you're spending 2 or 3 days in each port of call with us. And as I mentioned, but new departures as well taken in China, Japan and Thailand. You'll see some of the iconic, some of the sample itineraries here. So the first 2 are really our Japan voyages. So the first one is Japan with South Korea. You've then got our iconic Japan, which is really looping around the Japanese islands. You've got Southeast Asia, so a Singapore up to Tokyo trip taken in Vietnam, and then you've got a typical Vietnam trip with us as well, where, as I said, overnight stays in Da Nang, Chiang Mai, Ho Chi Minh City, over 10 to 14 days as well. Believe you me, we're nearly there with destinations, guys, so bear with me. South America, another destination which just seems to get more and more popular every year. We've got 9 departures, 14 maiden ports of call and 2 new itineraries. 4 ships again, more expedition ships this time. So Explorer, Cloud and Wind, our expedition vessels, and Silver Moon will also have some classic voyages out there. We're launching our first ever unprecedented Amazon River expedition cruise. We've done the Amazon River on our classic ships many times. We've never done it on an expedition ship. So you will, as I keep saying, have them experts with you. This is going to be a real depth exploration of the Amazon. So going out to meet the different tribes and see how they live off the land. And also, it might not be the nicest of trips in the sense that you're going to see the destruction and you're going to see what's going on in the Amazon. But if you want to experience the real Amazon, this expedition it's selling out very quickly already, but it's going to be pretty phenomenal, to be honest with you. And then finally, I think one of the biggest events on the South American continent, the Rio Carnival. Silver Moon will operate 2 sailings starting and finishing in Rio, giving our guests the opportunity to combine a cruise with that carnival as well. And you'll see some typical itineraries here. So the first one is that new Amazon River expedition. It's a 21-night trip from Fortaleza, heading right the way down the Amazon as far as Manaus, and then coming up and finishing in Bridgetown, Barbados. Might even want to extend that in Barbados because it's going to be a pretty full-on trip. So a few days on the beach at the end of that cruise might be a nice idea. You'll see one of our Chilean fjords expeditions from Valparaiso down to Ushuaia. And then you've got 2 South American itineraries as well. So Buenos Aires up to Rio, and also Lima looping right the way around to Buenos Aires. So again, lots of choice out there. I'm only showing you a few of the itineraries we operate, guys. Africa and the Indian Ocean. Again, a stronghold for us. Our guests really seem to like the Indian Ocean with Silversea. So 8 departures. We are returning our expedition vessels to the Indian Ocean. We haven't been out there in about 5 years. So Silver Explorer will offer 3 new brand new expeditions around the Indian Ocean. So taking in lots around Reunion Island, Mauritius, Madagascar, the Seychelles, and mainland Africa as well. So our guests will have the opportunity of safari game drives and lots of wildlife spotting. New Myanmar and Suez Canal departures, so 2 new sailings there. And a big one for those of you who like your football, Silver Spirit will actually be out in Doha for the FIFA World Cup 2022. So you can be out in Doha during the World Cup as well. So some great opportunity there to combine another world-class event with sailing on board a Silversea ship. And then I'm just going to quickly whiz through these destinations. I'm not going to show you as many slides, but you'll see here, we travel to Antarctica, 30 new departures to Antarctica. We also have our Antarctic bridge option. So for those of you who maybe wanted to go to Antarctica, but you're a little bit nervous about sailing across the Drake's Passage, I'm sure you've all heard horror stories. We now have the option to fly across the Drake and meet the ship down in Antarctica on our Antarctica bridge option. So 3 ships down in Antarctica, so a huge array of choice. The Arctic in Greenland, again, another key destination for our expedition ships, heading up to Svalbard to spot the polar bear, and then across to Greenland with its and Iceland with all the volcanic activity and the icebergs and scenery. Australia, New Zealand, lots going on out there. We have some great expeditions around the Australian Kimberley. We have voyages sailing from Sydney or Melbourne over to Auckland, taking in really all that New Zealand has to offer. The list goes on. Galapagos, there is no better way to see the Galapagos than on board Silver Origin. And believe you me, we operate every week. So our voyages start every Saturday with 2 different itineraries heading out to the Galapagos, and you can combine the 2 to go back to back. South Pacific, new departures in the South Pacific, including lots of expeditions. Our voyages take in Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, every type of Asia you can imagine. We have a ship heading there, and we also go to Papua New Guinea as well, which is not many cruise lines go to. North America, we have our famous Canada and New England sailing. So we sail from New York up to Quebec City, taking in that New England coastline, or in reverse. And we have some American West Coast expeditions as well. And along with our transoceanic. So for those of you who like the sea days, just want to be pampered and looked after, we have that option at Silversea as well. Now, very quickly, that is the end of the destinations. I just wanted to mention that we have launched 5 new grand voyages. We are seeing that, being that lots of people, I say lots of people, being that the majority of the world didn't get to go on holiday last year. This year's still looking a little bit iffy in terms of certain destinations. We're seeing a huge spike in demand for longer voyages. So we've actually created 5 new grand voyages. We have our Grand Voyage Pacific, which is a trip from Melbourne all the way up to Osaka in Japan. I'm reading this off my script now, guys. We have a Grand Voyage South America, which is a 70-night trip looping all the way around the South American continent. Grand Voyage Mediterranean, which is a trip from Athens to Lisbon, taking in all the Med has to offer. Our first ever Grand Northern Europe voyage, sailing from Lisbon to Stockholm. And you can actually combine our Grand Voyage Mediterranean with the Grand Northern Europe itinerary to make one super grand voyage, which I'm just going to show you a quick video on. This is Fernando, one of our onboard hotel directors, and he also heads up and is president of our Venetian Society membership, and he'll really just bring this itinerary to life for you and can do a much better job than I possibly could.
I want our guests to have the experience of a lifetime on every single cruise that they take. And all of these single ports are iconic. The Mediterranean is the epitome of culture in a sense. The whole thing started there, whether it was the Roman Empire or the Greek Empire. So many things come originally from this part of the world. The entire itinerary offers different things and important things. St. Petersburg is always a highlight. Stockholm is always a highlight. You are in Bordeaux and you've got all the best wines in the world right there. You're in Italy, pasta, spectacular pasta, pizza. You go right across and you are in Valencia and you got the paella valenciana. I love Istanbul. When you are on deck and they start lighting up the palaces, It's magnificent. And why not stay for the continuation? And we're going towards the added beauty of Iceland, which is something completely different. I think it's a magnificent opportunity of combining both worlds in one trip. Keep on sailing, keep on traveling, don't stop. There is always a new world waiting for you.
So as I said, Fernando can do a much better job at selling that to you, but I just wanted to show you one of our longer voyages and extremes. And then to finish, just to talk to you about some of the offers and promotions we do have going on at the moment. For those of you who are familiar with Silversea, you'll be very familiar with what we call our early booking bonus. This is where we will say, okay, book today, pay in full by a set date. So as it stands at the moment, it's book today, pay in full by the 28th of February. And you'll receive a saving. Normally it's a 10% saving, but on select voyages, we've now upped that saving to 20%. So the money's not earning you any interest anyway. You may as well give it to us, save yourself 20% off your cruise, and it's a win-win situation. And we also have reduced deposits of 15% at the moment on our 2021 voyages. So some great savings to be had. Touching again, just off the back of that Grand Voyage video, feedback, as I said, from our guests is that they want to do something longer. They've been restricted from traveling, so the longer voyages are selling well. So what we've actually done is we've actually designed what we call our combo voyages, and we've created 74 new combo voyages by twinning 2 or more of our voyages together. And when you book these voyages as a combo cruise, you'll save up to 20% as well as off the price if you just booked them separately. And then finally, an exclusive for my friends at Miles Morgan and for their guests. As a thank you and appreciation for listening to me today, they do have an exclusive £200 per person event savings certificate. So if you do book any Silversea cruises within the next 2 weeks, you will have the £200 per person saving. And with that being said, I haven't added any to the slides. Miles Morgan that have also got some exclusive sailings with us. They've got 8 voyages all in all, where their guests will benefit from an exclusive shipboard credit. Now, normally we don't allow the 2 offers to be combined, but I did some begging last night, and I'm glad to say exclusively to Miles Morgan customers, you can have any of the voyages where Miles Morgan have got the exclusive shipboard credits. You can combine that with the £200 event savings certificate. The team at Miles will be sending you out an email with these offers on, but I just wanted to talk about one quick voyage to you. Because the word I've never really used at my 9 years working at Silversea is bargain, but this really is a bargain. We have a 7-night voyage traveling at the end of April in 2022 from Lisbon to Barcelona. It includes your business class flights, transfers, as I said, all of your shore excursions, food, drinks, tips, gratuities, and $300 to spend on board. Actually comes in at just £2,860 per person. I nearly fell off my chair when I was putting this quote together for them. I had to get a colleague to recheck it. Please don't think all of our voyages come in at that price, but if you are after a bargain and you want something to look forward to, there's actually 2 similar voyages Miles have got access to for you on that as well. But as I said, they will be sending out a follow-up email with all them offers on in the next couple of days. I'm gonna, and then finally, for those of you who are keen to get away this year, and if you are looking at 2021, we do have our Cruise of Confidence program in place. So you can cancel your voyage up to 30 days prior and receive 100% future cruise credit. So you're not gonna, no fear of having to lose out, but we do have a generous cancellation policy anyways, which again, the team at Miles Morgan can help you with if you have any questions. They all know me and have my telephone number. So if there's anything they're not too sure on, they all know just to drop me a quick line anyways. And I'm gonna finish on, maybe it didn't come through. I was gonna finish on another video, but it looks like I've removed it. So I will finish there and hand back over to Miles. But thank you for listening.
I thought you were going to be cheeky, Luke, and say I'm going to finish with a picture of Miles. I thought that's a bit cheeky. Thank you very much. I think where don't you go would probably be a good sum up of it.
Absolutely.
We've got some questions, which is fantastic. So let's pick them from the top, please. See if we can hit you with some of these you don't know the answer to. Do you do suites for 3 ladies sharing?
Absolutely. On our classic ships, well, yeah, to be honest, on our classic ships, every suite type is capable of taking 3 guests. And the best thing about it, if you're prepared to share, is the 3rd guest gets a massive reduction in cost. So if you're splitting that 3 ways, it really does help in terms of costing. Expedition, it really depends on the vessel and where you're going, because certain regions have restrictions as to how many guests we can actually embark on our ships.
Okay. Do all your suites have balconies?
Not all of them. So the picture I showed you was of our Vista suite. That's our lowest category when it comes to our classic ships. That is a picture window, but we have few of them. The vast majority, about 90% of our suites are balcony. The vast majority of what we have on board are what we call our classic veranda suites. So they look exactly the same as the image I showed you in the presentation. The only difference is that window area is obviously a sliding door onto a balcony.
Okay. Are there single cabins on all of your ships?
Great question. And now you're making me wish I put a slide in on my presentation, but as I bored you enough, we don't have single suites, but we do have great single supplements. So for whoever asked that question, if you want to contact the team at Mars Morgan, I'm more than happy for them to reach out to me. We've actually got 150 voyages at the moment with just a 25% single supplement. So there's plenty on offer for our single guests. We have a huge single guest following at Silversea. Being that you're on a smaller, more social, intimate ship, it's not as daunting for many of our solo guests, and we host cocktail parties for our solo guests throughout their stay, so they're never alone.
Okay. Karen, your question: given the collapse of cruise maritime voyages, will any cruise companies sail out of Bristol? I'll take that one. So there is a possibility of a cruise line maybe looking at cruising from the spring of 2022 to go from Bristol. Bristol is a challenge, and without getting too technical, there are 2 challenges with Bristol that puts cruise lines off using it as a port of call. One is particularly narrow to get into the cruise port itself, which is a challenge, and it puts off some of the captains of the ships. They don't like that. But the biggest deal of all is because I think it is a fact to say it has the biggest tidal change in the whole of Europe. So it peaks and troughs so much every day, and it puts people off. Why does it do that? Because basically, when it drops too far, ships can't get in. So if you've cruised, you've experienced you arriving a couple of hours late in a port. It happens quite frequently. Now, of course, with Bristol, if you arrive too late and you miss that window of being able to get into the port, it means you literally have to wait for the next high tide to get in. And you can imagine that puts the whole voyage completely out of kilter completely. And it puts off quite a few cruise lines from looking at Bristol. But I'm hopeful that somebody might do it from spring of 2022. But part of the challenge is those 2 things, why people are more nervous.
Miles, if everyone on this call promises to book a Silversea, I'll get Silversea to base ship in Bristol for you.
There we go then. Just a couple of things. I thought there's 3 things I wrote down in terms of destinations. Look, I think your comments on Alaska are absolutely spot on, and talking to people that have done that cruise. I haven't done that cruise up the Alaskan coast. The small ship does make a difference. You are right. Everybody sails on that route, if you like. But that is a big, for me, personal Silversea's difference. Galapagos is incredibly busy, important, and I think what we will see is there might be a reduction in tourism over the next sort of 5 to 10 years in Galapagos. So if it's something you're thinking of doing, I would probably put it on your list sooner rather than later, just in case that comes in, because if it does, potentially that means prices might rise.
And just on the back of that, it's right, the Galapagos is so restricted. When we launched Silver Origin, we had to retire Silver Galapagos. We're not allowed to add capacity, but we could replace it. So hence why we would love to have had 2 ships out there, because it's such a big seller for us, but they're very strict. And obviously for environmental reasons, we're not allowed to do that. So it's a tricky destination to get to.
And I think they might reduce it still further. And if they do, that will make it even more in demand. The final one that you mentioned that's really, really big is Japan at the moment. You know, you can imagine the bookings that we're taking so far this year, nowhere near what we would normally sell in a normal January that we've just had. But what we can see is we can see trends already. And Japan is one of those places at the moment, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it is hot. There's no doubt about it. And being able to do it on an absolutely splendid ship like you have is a great opportunity. So that's probably another one that I would mention. From a personal perspective, I've been lucky enough to go on Silver Muse when Silver Muse came into service. Crumbs, Luke, 2 years ago now, would it be?
No, it was 2017. Can you believe?
Oh God, three and a bit years ago. It is an absolutely magnificent ship, and I think that the cabins in particular are exceptional. And I think in terms of the butlers, and I think I'm a little bit like Luke, I don't like people all over me when I'm on holiday because I just want to relax and feel like I'm relaxing. But I think that the butler service, the discretion the butlers use is brilliant. And that was, you know, I think for me, the two things I took out of it was the quality of cabin was absolutely exceptional, service exceptional, and the butlers, where you kind of think, I don't really want a butler, but actually it was brilliant. And you didn't even know they were about. And as you said, they just did things and you think, oh, wow, that's amazing. So there is a big difference for me in terms of the quality you get with Silversea. And I can speak from first-hand knowledge and say it was fantastic. We got another question come in. Amazing trip on the expedition ship to the Maldives, Seychelles, including Alhambra. Whoa, thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Elizabeth's done a better job than me there. But yeah, that would have been one of the new Indian Ocean expeditions, guys.
There we are then. That's good news. What about you? I picked out my three, if you like, that I picked from the destinations. For you, your experience, feedback from guests on Silversea, would there be, you picked out an itinerary on price. Would you like to pick me out another one where you say, God, that is just amazing?
Well, there's quite a few of them, to be honest with you. For me, I'm very lucky to work at Silversea. As a business, they really do look after us, and we do get to go on board and experience. I've had two pretty spectacular itinerary and experiences where I would say, if you can get on there and do it, one of which we're not operating at the moment, but we'll be back, and we have to let the demand build again. But it's expedition all the way. This expedition travel and the people you're traveling with and the educational aspects and the experiences you have, it sounds really cliche, but it is quite life-changing. So I did one trip around Indonesia, which was just, for me, phenomenal. We got to go out and hang out with sort of, I say, local tribes, but local villages, local people. It was pretty cool. And we also got to see a massive, the impact of the Boxing Day tsunami. I went probably about 10 years after it happened, but still the impacts in the everyday life. And these are things where on a normal cruise you wouldn't really see, because the cruise lines try and show you all the nice things, whereas an expedition is all about showing you the destination and what you're letting yourself in for. And another amazing trip I did was actually the Sea of Cortez, which is the one I said we're not doing for the next couple of years, but it will come back. The Sea of Cortez in Mexico, I sailed from Mazatlan on the Pacific coast of Mexico up to Santiago, and we just spent 12 days in the Sea of Cortez doing the most incredible things. The ship would just stop when we would see like a pack of sea lions, and they would actually let us jump in and swim the sea lions in the wild. We got bored of whales, we got bored of dolphins, because they were just absolutely everywhere. We did an overnight excursion, which was included, where we actually went up on a train. We chartered the train and went up through the Copper Canyon, which I'd never heard of in Mexico, but it's actually, I think, 3 times larger than the Grand Canyon, but no one knows about it. So we did an overnight trip up over the Copper Canyon as well. So in terms of destinations and new itineraries, I would say the most appealing one to me right now is the Amazon expedition.
Very good, thank you. Obviously, one of the questions you're probably all thinking, this is all very well and groovy, where do we sign? We'd love to do it, but when a cruise is starting, you know, which is obviously really, really pertinent at the moment. I think I'll give my perspective, Luke. You can give yours after. I think what we're seeing is that currently where we are with the government is they've said no cruising. So the FCDO advice says cruising can't happen at the moment. CLEAR, who is the body that represent the cruise industry, have put together some protocols to allow the restart of cruise. And those have been agreed by the government. The government are happy with all the protocols they put in place. And so that is a huge tick. And I think really, as soon as we get further down the track with the vaccination program, because the government have already approved the protocols that the cruise industry have put forward, it should allow cruising to restart relatively quickly. And obviously the news yesterday that 2/3 of people that have had the vaccine can't get it and pass it on is huge from the perspective of cruising restarting. I think it will restart probably with UK cruising staying in UK waters. So you might see around Britain cruising, things like that taking place, and then move on to countries that are, at the moment the government have their red list, places they don't want people to go. Equally, there will be a green list, and I would suggest cruising will then move to being maybe from the UK and going to green destinations. Good example, one that Luke mentioned in his talk was Iceland, for example. So it could well be that maybe Iceland might become it. So people will be able to go to Iceland and cruise around there, and it will open up bit by bit. And probably you might not be aware, but actually, when it comes to cruising has already been started and still taking place. So MSC cruises have been sailing out of Italy almost throughout the whole of this pandemic, and they've been going around Italian ports and out to Malta. And so that's been going on, and they've carried, I think, 35,000 people or something like that while they've been doing this cruise program. Royal Caribbean have been doing similar, and so cruises are still operating. And of course, every single cruise they operate, they see how it goes. What happens if somebody catches COVID? What do they do? Obviously, you can all remember that Princess cruise in Yokohama, that ship that was there. I don't think we'll ever see that ever again, because what they experienced then, they learned from. I think they're doing an awful lot of work on the air that circulates through the cabins. The purification of that is all in play. All of those are in the protocols that CLEAR have put forward to the government, that the government have agreed to. And so I think the industry will restart. And obviously, let's be honest, from a financial perspective, those ships that are bobbing around off Torquay and off Poole Harbour can't afford to stay like that forever, because the numbers just don't stack up. And so I can see something starting. I'm not going to be bold enough to give it a date. Luke might be more bold than me and give it a date, but I wouldn't like to give it a date. But I think, if the vaccination program continues as it is, protocols are already agreed, I would be hopeful we'll certainly see cruising in 2021, and hopefully, probably in the middle of the year, something like that. Luke, you've got a view or opinion?
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. The one thing I will say is just to go off the back of what you said, Miles, as you just touched on, there's lots of work going on in the background. Every cruise line has used this opportunity of the no sail to enhance their ships, to change the air conditioning units, to take the ships into dry dock and to do whatever work they need to be done to them. We at Silversea and the larger group, Royal Caribbean Group, I'm not sure whether any of you have seen the press releases, but Royal Caribbean are the second largest cruise corporation globally, and Norwegian Cruise Holdings are the third. We've actually been working very closely with Norwegian Cruise Holdings, and we've formed a healthy sail panel. So we've got I think it's about 52 specialists in different fields, all working together, working on different protocols. They were actually the protocols what we took to CLEAR and the UK government when they were approved. And what you'll find is other cruise lines will now ride off the back of that. So as an industry, it's in our best interest that we have the best protocols. If one negative story hits the press about one cruise line, we all bleed. So our aim ultimately is to make cruising the safest way to travel. But that being said, we will only do so when the time is right. At the moment, yes, we're very keen to get back on the water, but now is not the right time to go sailing again. If I'm being honest in terms of a start date, I'm confident for late summer. But definitely by, I would say, September, October, you'll start to see some movement. The early voyages, we're still hopeful for, but obviously the longer this goes on, the more we have to start looking at them things. But no, I agree with Miles. I think we will get some ships back on the water with some guests on board towards the end of this year.
Very good, thank you. Are there any more questions? If there are no more, then I will say a big thank you to Luke for his time this afternoon. I hope you all found it beneficial, and I hope you've learned, you know, at the start of the presentation, I was hoping that the one thing you take from it is all cruise lines are not the same, and fundamentally what the difference is with Silversea. And I think for me, it's the inclusions, it's the service, it's the quality of the ship, and the sheer breadth of the itineraries they offer, which is amazing. And so thank you everybody for joining. Have a great afternoon this evening. And we'll all hopefully be in time to tune into Boris at 5 o'clock and see what he has for us today. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.